The music from video games are some of the most inspirational out there. Video game music can be used to convey an atmosphere of triumph, a feeling of excitement, or even a feeling of fear. Adding music to a game helps paint the emotional aspect of the game, pulling the player deeper into the experience. Video game music can be so powerful that even decades after hearing a song, it could still be remembered. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System, which was released August of 1991 in North America, went on to entertain the previously NES-addicted souls of children that didn't even know what was about to hit them. And with those beautiful games came their soundtracks. I would like to share my top 5 favorite tracks from Super Nintendo games. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Quantum Cakes! Chrono Trigger was one of my favorite Super Nintendo games growing up. To this day, there is something that remains magical about it, in that it calls a person back to play it time and time again, never getting bored of its storytelling beauty. One of the iconic things to mention about Chrono Trigger is its insanely brilliant soundtrack. The original composer, Yasunori Mitsuda, apparently was threatening to quit Square in 1994 when he was assigned to compose the Chrono Trigger soundtrack, which kept him on board. Unfortunately, during development, Mitsuda experienced a hard drive crash that lost him nearly 40 tracks that could have made it to the game. It's so saddening to know that there was more Chrono Trigger music to behold. Regardless, the game is packed full of amazingly put together music that will transport you to another world entirely. And for me, there was one particular track that stands out, Secret of the Forest. It's an honest shame that this music wasn't used for too long in the game. In fact, a player could go through the entire game without even hearing the full length of the music. But once you stick around and listen, there's just something about it. This track will stick with me for all time. Super Mario RPG is definitely a game that's one of a kind, and the direction that Nintendo and Square decided to take was completely risky, adding Final Fantasy inspiration to the Mario universe. In the end, however, it became one of the greatest video games of all time according to video game critics. Growing up, Super Mario RPG already had a mystery surrounding it in my childhood mind. I would always see the game at the top of a shelf in a video store down the street in my childhood town, just sitting there staring at me. It was a Mario game, but what was it? The game would be there every time we would visit, just begging me to ask my mom to rent it for me, but we never did. I would have to wait years to be able to play Super Mario RPG, and by then an entire online community had grown surrounding this game, sharing with me the awe of just how awesome this game was, and still is. And of course, the soundtrack to the game is magnificent, being both something entirely on its own, but still somehow feeling as though it belongs perfectly in the Mario universe. Which actually makes sense, since Yoko Shimomura had stated that she used elements from Koji Kondo's work from the Super Mario Bros. Soundtrack while working on the Super Mario RPG soundtrack. Honestly, I think a reason that this song may be on the top 5 for my SNES favorites is due to one dedicated Mario RPG fan making an entire song using it. Actually, they made 2. And I will leave those videos in the description for your listening and viewing pleasure later, as they actually are quite amazing. Perhaps those fan-made songs, coupled with the fact that this area introduced one of the most notable characters fans love from Super Mario RPG, that makes this song so memorable or fun to listen to. I'll keep this one close to my childhood. We had seen this Donkey Kong character previously in a Mario arcade game from 1981, but in 1994 he re-emerged in the Super Nintendo game Donkey Kong Country, Jungle jamming his way to the top, selling over 9 million copies. The story is centered around Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong trying to take back their stolen hoard of bananas from King K. Rool. When Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo was released, it offered game enthusiasts something different. And of course, the soundtrack along with it is absolutely incredible. The music in this game used sounds that match the environments of each level, from the vast jungles, to the cavernous mines, to the bottom of the waters. Each stage with its environment matching music helped pull the player more into the world. I remember distinctly one particular tune. This would play during various levels in the Creme Croc Industries portion of the game. As players, we had already felt from previous tracks in the game a sort of driving forward rhythm encouraging us not only to move forward but to enjoy the spectacle of the world around us. However, this was the first track to not only get me pumped, but at certain points make me feel like King K. Rool's destruction truly knows no bounds, and we have to stop him. This one, I could listen to all day. Star Fox for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System is a 3D rail shooter that offered players a unique experience utilizing the Super Nintendo's Super Effects coprocessor and was the first game from Nintendo to use polygonal graphics. The game is about multiple anthropomorphic animals traversing the Lilat system and taking on the evil Andross, who had declared war on Corneria, their homeworld. Not only did this game excel at giving you a killer experience, the soundtrack in itself also offered something that would get you pumped from the moment you started level 1. I'll be completely honest here in this review. I was more geared towards enjoying Star Fox 64. I was never exactly a true fan of the Super Nintendo Star Fox, but I would trade the soundtracks for these games in a heartbeat. This track will echo far into the future for me, and will be something that I ritually listen to when I need to get ready to take action. The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past is one of the greatest games ever released. The game is centered around our hero, Link, and his adventure not only to save the princess, but rescue the 7 maidens and stop the mysterious wizard, later being revealed as the evil Ganon's alter ego. When I was a child, I never made it past the rabbit transformation part of the game because by that time, somehow I just didn't have possession of the game anymore. I can't remember whether or not my family rented Link to the Past, or if we were borrowing it from a family friend at the time. Like Super Mario RPG, I would have to wait years later to have this game fall into my possession where I could dedicate time to completing it. The first time I completed this game, though, I honestly was a bit emotional knowing that I had finished a game that I had wanted to complete since I was a wee lad. I remember after defeating Ganon for the first time, I was greeted by the Triforce in a chamber, and this track was playing in the background. It felt like the ending to a great novel, or turning the final page of something in my childhood and closing the book to rest it back on the shelf until next time. To this day, I have added hundreds of hours into this game, completing literally every single thing that it has to offer. I cannot say the same for a lot of other video games I've played. This track in particular will play in my head every time a great story comes to an end. In fact, actually, when we finished Breath of the Wild recently on my channel, I couldn't help but think of this song. I don't know whether the soundtracks of newer video games will be able to offer the same level of nostalgia years from now, but maybe that's just because that's the way that I feel right now. Maybe one day the next generation will look back on video game music today and feel similar to the way that I'm feeling right now. And certainly there's still great video game music being produced, I won't deny that, but there's just something about soundtracks of video games from decades ago that keep them hanging on to this day, and that keeps us appreciating the dedication its creators had in seeing their work through. These have been my top 5 favorite tracks from the Super Nintendo era. I'd like to firstly thank everyone who made it to the end of this video, and I would like to know what your favorite tracks are from the SNES era. Leave a comment down below. And if you enjoyed, please subscribe for more content such as this, like the video and share it with your friends, and join our Discord. I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye!